Good day. My name is Lebone, and this is Africa Talks Business, live at the ESG Conference at the Sandton Convention Center. We are currently joined by Ms. Lebone Nkhumeleni, lecturer at the University of Pretoria. Lebone, thank you so much for your time.
And thank you for inviting me for us to have a chat.
Thank you. What do you hope will come out of this conference?
You know, really, I hope that all the leaders that are sitting in this conference will leave the conference with more than just intention. Right? We typically attend conferences and we're inspired to go back to our workspaces with great intentions. But my hope is certainly to say, if there's one tool, one practice, one philosophy, one strategy, one idea that's being adopted and taken from this conference and being implemented in the next, 6 to 12 months, that would be much more impactful.
And why do you think ESG is so important for the economy?
ESG is so important right now, specifically for a number of reasons, right? It's about integrating complexities. We're facing some might call a poly crisis, so that means there's just so many tensions and contestations of crises around the world that also speak to geopolitical forces, that speak to instabilities in economies. And because of that, leaders now, both business and non-business leaders, have to really think around how do we strengthen the economic base in a refined system. Because I mean, it is known now, we can see it, feel it, that the current economic system has not been as sustainable as we had thought it would be. So we have to rethink the ways in which we do business.
Right. Do you think ESG policies exist within government? And if not, how do we take ESG policies and government policies and integrate them?
So it's an interesting question that that I was reflecting on during my preparation, right? I think what's happening in government right now is trying to mend the minimal of service delivery. And that service delivery is existing outside the context of what's traditionally understood as ESG in terms of the risk factors. Why I say that is because what is being managed for right now by government is not truly reflective holistically of how you're integrating environmental, social, and governance issues in a coordinated fashion. So you can have ministries and the state is working on environmental targets. That's fine. The state is working on social security targets, but those are disjointed. And for that reason, I would think that, you know what, there isn't a much more strengthened or a nuanced policy in the state that speaks to ESG. So it's two worlds apart.
Right. So speaking to you as a lecturer now, how important do you think it is to incorporate ESG into the coursework? Is it something that you have already been doing? And if not, how do you plan on incorporating it?
So within the modules that we facilitate at the Department of Business Management at the University of Pretoria, we have long been incorporating, say, thematic curriculum that speaks to ESG. For example, within our undergraduate modules or for business management, we introduced SDGs as, you know, a very big component of understanding how business fits itself into society. And then, for example, in second year level, we have a module called Responsible Leadership. And within responsible management. And within that, we're explicitly teaching about the complexity of the role of business, the role of government, and the role of society within the enlarged world that we live in. Then last but not least, I know I'm being elaborate here, but this is what we're really passionate about because we really do integrate it into our curriculum. Last but not least, we have aspects where we are getting students to think about the social innovation process at third year level, also incorporating strategy. So as they're learning about business strategies, we immediately touch on governance. And within governance, we say, what would a board of directors need to think about when they're reflecting on a strategy? We then introduce ESG in that manner.
Right, thank you. What do you think are the top ESG risks that not just Africa, but the world as a whole is currently facing right now? And how do you think we should go about addressing those?
Ooh, I think the top risks right now are more towards the S and then E, then G. Right? I say in that manner because there's high levels of depolarization among groups of people in their ideologies of really what does it mean to live a sustainable life.
Yeah.
For example, for starters. And because of that, that translates also in the political space where people will determine which political party to vote for and who to put in power to represent the interests of people, of society at large. And because of that now, it creates a lot of instability. And it's not, first of all, it's not linear, and you cannot, hold things, as economists will say, ceteris paribus, in a constant state where you're like, let's just think about S, let's just think about G, and let's hope that we'll look at E. And even in the complexity of saying there's instability in, let's say, social cohesion, there's also issues that rise up for the environment. Because it's not like we haven't stopped to consume products. We're not stopping to drive around with our cars. So those complexities essentially mean that the risk factors that are much more elevated would speak about social cohesion, would speak about, because of lack of that social cohesion, we might be running ourselves short of thinking more about environmental risks.
Right. Well, earlier on, you mentioned the word crisis. And as you know, in South Africa, we are currently facing an energy crisis right now. What sort of impact do you think it has had on the economy?
Sure. Interesting you ask. We allowed our second-year students to run an analysis using AI on the South African energy crisis.
Yeah.
And part of the results was showing that the impact of the energy crisis it far outweighs also the economic implications, such as we are losing at about 1 billion rand within a space of a day or two whenever the stage 6 load shedding. So it now also speaks to, I beg your pardon, it now also speaks to how individuals are foreseeing their future socioeconomically to say, is there going to be job security? As it is, we have a very high unemployment rate. So if businesses are closing down, then we're actually trying to bring in some employment of sorts. What does it mean? It means that people are seeing themselves further and further and further away from any sort of empowerment, whether it be economically or even at this stage for social status.
Right. Ms. Nkhumeleni, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Lebone.
Thank you.
Bye.